All right, I told you if you have any questions about body language, just email them to me, bodylanguagequestions@gmail.com, and I'd answer them. And that's what I'm going to do. And today we're going to go over how liars leak truth. We'll talk about vocal fry. What is it? What does it sound like? We'll talk about body language you see in photos, like on Instagram and TikTok and Facebook, those kind of things. We'll talk about that show Dexter. Remember the psychopath? Was he a psychopath or not? And then we'll talk about narcissists and lying. So that's what some of the things we're going to go over. We got a lot more questions than that. That's what we're going to go over. All right, first question. Can you talk about what you're seeing with this expression? Let's see. Oh, yeah. That is, I've talked about this on here a lot, on almost every episode, because people always ask that question. So I'm going to just really quickly get to it and scooch right by. That's called lip grip, disappearing lips, or I like to call it stress mouth, because when someone is stressed, their lips will disappear, though. Or sometimes they don't want to give information out. They're asked a question and they're thinking, they're like holding their tongue for a minute so they don't say something they shouldn't, and they're thinking it through. Most of the time, you'll see it almost every time in those congressional hearings where someone is they're in question for their integrity, those kind of things. And you'll see the lips disappear. And Joe Navarro says, when the lips disappear, an issue is near. So that's how you can look at that. Now, why do you say in your videos that human beings leak the truth? What I'm talking about there is most of the time it's about micro-expressions. And micro-expressions are those little expressions that show up when someone is trying to hide any emotion, happiness, sadness, contempt, grief, those kind of things. So people will leak the truth. They'll try to look normal, but if it was contempt, and you'll see this little part of my mouth here go up like that, just a little bit. That's what I'm going to show you. As you're talking to them, they'll go, that wasn't very big, because it's a micro expression, and they're really small. Or duper's delight. Sometimes you'll see a little like this when you tell them something that's horrible that happened to you, and they go, it's really quick. I can't do it as fast as a real micro expression, but it's those kind of things. The truth leaks out. Their true feelings, their true emotions will leak out on their face. Face is really important. You've got to really study the emotions and expressions of the human face if you're going to get into this, especially for what most people are looking for here is someone lying, or they tell me the truth, what's happening. So you want to learn all you can about facial expressions. We'll go over some of those as well, as usual on here, because they're so important. Once a narcissist realizes later their lies were discovered, are some able to take that knowledge and get better at it for the next time? Oh yeah, it's like rehearsal. Every time you do something, and let's say you're learning how to juggle, every time you drop whatever it is you're juggling, you learn something. You try to do it again. You keep trying, keep trying. Quite often when someone is really astute at lying, they've been lying since they were a little kid. They're great at it. They're pros. Even in their early teens, they get good at it. And the more that, if they're discovered, they'll think about why that person knew. How did they know I wasn't telling the truth? What tipped them off? What was the situation? Was it something I said? Was it something I looked like? Was it something I didn't do? You want to look for the things that aren't there, right? So you want to look for the things that aren't there that should be there, in other words. Like for grief, you're going to try to look for the grief muscle. It's where the glabella right here, those little muscles pull together and make the grief muscle. And in the chin boss right here, you want to see that little upside down smiley face there, or you'll see some movement in there, or the corners of the mouth will come down, that kind of thing. So that's why learning facial expressions is so important. All right, how can I watch behavior one-on-one without staring? And how do I do two things at once, like converse and observe? You get used to it. Once you start learning body language and you start learning the cues to look for example, let's say you go out one week and the only thing you're going to look for in body language at all, one thing, are illustrators. When someone is talking and they use their hands and they do this, and they do that, and that's all you paid attention to. That's all you're going to pay attention to. And what you're paying attention to there is, are those illustrators emphasizing the specific words and phrases their brain is trying to emphasize. So they should land on the words. And when they don't, it looks weird. And if they add extra ones, then something's up there that suggests that they've got inner dialogue going on up there, and you need to pay attention closer to what's going on. Now, once you get used to seeing these things and you see them all the time, they're going to be everywhere. You're going to see everybody using them because most everybody uses them, right? So once you see that, you'll know what they're, you won't have to look at their hands and watch what they're doing. You'll just be able to see that in your peripheral vision, and you'll say, okay, I see what's happening there. And you'll be good at it if you start doing that, to start practicing, in other words. And you'll get good at it. Is there any psychopath, living or dead, that you would have loved to interview? Ooh. I don't know. Maybe Hitler. Yeah, nobody ever interviewed the guy, right? That's who I'd want to interview. That's who I'd want to talk to. See what just a mind that's blasted looks like, or how it reacts to. But I have to speak German. Let's pretend, since we're saying anybody living or dead, let's say we both speak English, or I can speak German and understand him perfectly. That's probably the guy I'd talk to, Hitler, because I think we'd learn a lot from that, and I could write a paper or some studies on that, because I'd go in loaded for bear talking to that guy. I'd be ready. Yeah, I think Hitler would be a good one. Hey, Scott, you talk about mirroring behaviors often. Did you ever notice a person and a dog sitting next to each other? First one yawns and then the other yawns. Yeah, I've seen that. And it's hilarious. But that's called echopraxia. Echopraxia. And what happens is this. If you see someone who does something that's sensitive to what you're feeling, or let's say you've been for a walk and you come in and sit down and you see somebody yawn, and you're sensitive to a yawn, you may have yawned just then, because maybe you're just sitting there watching this and you yawned all of a sudden, because it's something your brain sees and goes, I think I'll do that too. In other words, you'll see people, if you watch the behavior panel, and we're on there, some people say, I just saw, they'll comment, I just saw Greg take a drink and Scott took one too, or Scott took a drink and then Chase took one, or Mark did. We're not paying attention to that, but you see that and you go, yeah, maybe I'll do that too. You don't think that in the front part of your brain, it just kind of happens. Echopraxia. Throw it in the Google, you'll get a lot of good information on it. There's some great studies about it. Scott, you look like you're losing weight. Are you okay? Thank you. Okay, here's what happened. So anyway, it was about a year ago, and I was riding with Dr. Phil. He was driving, right? I don't know where we were going. Probably had just done a show. We're going back to his house or something. We're going out to eat or something. We're going somewhere, right? And out of nowhere, as we're talking, he says, are you on any kind of weight loss program? Or weight, it wasn't weight loss, it was weight something like that. And I was like, no. Now, first thing I think is he's going to have the fat talk with me, right? Because we're going to do a show on his network and all that. This is because we know we're going to do it for quite a while. And so I thought, oh, he's going to have the fat talk with me, right? And he wasn't. I don't think he was. I think he was just wondering, or maybe was, wanted to ask that. So I'm thinking, I'm sitting there, and he then moved right on to something else. Started talking about something else. Then I start thinking, I am overweight. I should lose a few pounds. Get rid of this. We're going to be on TV. How embarrassing is that going to be? I'm a big old chub on there, and I need to lose weight. I should do that anyway. So I'm thinking that, right? So I'm thinking, how am I going to do that? So I thought, well, he's written couple of books on weight loss, right? Dr. Phil has. And he's got this book called The Ultimate Weight Solution. Not weight loss solution, but the ultimate weight solution, right? It's like 7 ways to, 7 somethings to lose weight. I thought, well, I'll just get that. So I got it on my Kindle. And I downloaded it. And I started reading it, right? And I got about halfway through. And he's asking, and talks about things like why you're eating, what kind of mood you're in, that kind of thing. Gets up in your head. And I had to quit halfway through because he got in my head. It got way up in my head. And I was like, well, I got to keep reading because, I need to lose weight. That's all I did. I had to put it down because every time I went to eat somewhere, there's a tiny little Dr. Phil sitting in that chair like on a show. He's got that notebook thing in his arm. He's going, sure you want to eat bread? That's what it feels like. I mean, I hear his voice in there, even though he never said that to me. He never said, you need to lose weight. He never said anything. But I got about halfway through that dang book. And I was like, I don't know. It was weird. And then over the next year, I stopped eating sugar. I didn't say I'm going to stop eating sugar. I just quit eating sugar and I quit eating bread and I used to eat like an eighth grader. I mean, just horrible, right? If you look at those early behavior panel shows, man, I'm like, yeah, what do you got, Greg? So I just, oof. But that's all I did. And then after a while, just to lose maybe a pound every couple of weeks or a month, I'd lose a pound and a half or 2 pounds. And so over the last year, I've lost 23 pounds, I think, a little over 23 pounds. Not that I'm counting, but that's what's going on. That's why it's so slow. If I dropped it all at once, I'd be freaking out. But yeah, it's over the past year and a half. Whenever he and I had that conversation, I got that book, The Ultimate Weight Solution. That's the name of it. Maybe you just need to read half of it. I don't know. It got me, it worked on me. Could you hypnotize someone to not give away body language cues? Hypnotism it's sort of its own thing. And I'm not into it. I don't get into it. But if let's say you could hypnotize somebody and you could get them to do things or whatever, then you wouldn't be able to go over every little thing in human behavior to get them not to react specifically. I don't think you could do it. No, I'm going to say no, because there are too many things going on neurologically that you can't control when you hear something emotionally that shocks you or does something. And this person that's hypnotizing you, they're not going to know what your specific cues are or the things that bother you. Or if they did a generalized, if you ever feel something like this and you don't do this, this, and this, then you're just going to look like a freak. You just be sitting there like, I don't know, I don't think you can do that. No. I'll vote no on that, or I'll say no. What is on the chain around your neck? I always hear a clinking when you pull your arm back to your chest. It didn't happen just there. It is. That little sound there. I don't know why this question's put in here. Yeah. So what I have a cross. I'm into big guns. And then I have my dog, Albert. That's his dog tag. He's my favorite thing in the whole wide world was Albert. And I got him in 2007 or 2008, 2007, and then he passed away in 2020. And he was my favorite thing in the world. Just adored him. Just the sweetest dog in the world. So that's what's on there in those things. So I do that. I guess you're right. They clank together when I pull my hand back. So if you hear that, that's what it is. Sweet little dog. I loved him so much. He's such a good boy. He was the best dog in the world. All right. Have you ever looked at a famous painting or photograph and read body language from the subject of the painting or photo? I used to do that when I was little. And I'd tell my parents and my brother and sister what I thought was going on. One time we went to London and we went to like the big museums and stuff. And I was going, oh, look at this guy. But when you think about it now, back then as a kid, you see those things and go, I've been told that this means something and that means something. So that's what they're thinking. But when you think about what was going on then, that person would sit there a long time. So there's nothing you're really going to see in those things unless that person created it, the situation, and put that person in a situation. But it wouldn't be their true emotions, I wouldn't think, especially back then, because I don't think there were very many studies long time ago when some of those paintings were being made, like in the Renaissance period and all that. So anymore, when I see things like that in paintings, I know that it doesn't mean anything because it's not, it's not moving. It's just like let's say they took a photo and just painted the photo, right? Took the picture and In pictures, it's the same kind of thing. A lot of people think, oh, their head is pointed this way toward this person in the picture. Excuse me. And so they're into that person and not the person they're with. Or they're not in love with their wife because they're not doing this in this picture. Well, in a picture, you're seeing just a tiny little slice of time, just captured like that. And that person could be moving from one position to the others. They're getting all worked. You know how it is. You've seen pictures of you where you look weird. Think about that. You think, well, I don't look like that. I would never do that. Or somebody's got one of their eyes closed or both eyes closed. You want them both open, but it doesn't mean you're eye blocking and don't like your picture made because you're doing that in the photo. It just means they took the picture when you're blinking, right? So a lot of times when you see pictures of body language, people say, oh, it means this, this, and this. That's iffy. You really got to be careful there because it's just a really thin, just a nanosecond of time that they've captured there. You don't see, they may be moving this way or they may be moving this way. Their head may be going toward them or maybe coming away from them to point toward the other person. You never know. So when you see people talking about photos, that's why I never do those. And like when I get a lot of calls to go, oh, we want to talk about this photo of whatever, or on the news and stuff, because I do like Newsmax and News Nation a lot. And if they're photos, I don't do those because it's just so iffy. You really can't tell much. You can tell if somebody's mad, but sometimes you'll see things that when someone's changing from one expression to another, and it just looks weird, or they're moving from one thing to another and it looks weird. So you really can't tell much from those. So I'd be careful with those. That's really, really iffy. But when I was little, I used to think I knew everything. But yeah, this is what they're seeing. Hey, Dad, check this out. Remember when you read about that? Oh, yeah, I see what you're saying. And he wasn't going to like correct me, because I'm a little kid into whatever it is. And he's showing me, he's being positive about it at the same time. But later we talked about that, years later. I know you've said before that psychopaths don't really have feelings or emotions like other people. You've used the expression, there's nobody in there. What do you mean by that? Well, when you have a true psychopath, like a clinical psychopath, there's nobody in there. It's just a body running around trying to please itself because the brain isn't working properly, right? It can't have any feelings or emotions for you except anger. And that's why I say there's nobody in there. It's just a body running around. It's empty. No moral compass, no nothing. They fascinate me, don't get me wrong, but don't like them, not at all. Scott, could you please explain vocal fry? What is it? Okay, that's when someone's talking, and at the end of their sentence or their phrase, whatever, you hear this at the end, and it just kind of goes down this little gruff sound like this. You see, I hear a lot in coffee shops. But yep, and it's those people that will get on your last nerve if you let them, because when they talk, it's always like this. It's always got that thing. It's like that raspy voice thing. There's no reason to have it in there so many times, especially when you're doing this. The Kardashians do it a lot. Excuse me. And it sounds like this seal who lived in Boston. There was a seal. He was at the aquarium. And then the news there in Boston somebody had done a story on this talking seal. And it sounded like it was talking. And they went to the aquarium, and the seal, every time it would talk, what it would say was, get out of here. Get out of here. And it would go, people go up to the seal and go, hey, what are you doing, buddy pal? And he'd go, get out of here. Get out of here. That's what it sounded like. It was the funniest thing ever. Now, the person doing the news story had never seen the film of it. They were just reading what they're supposed to, off the teleprompter. They saw this and got tickled and couldn't get a hold of it. Couldn't keep from laughing. And they lost it on the news and couldn't get it together. And I think it was a woman telling the story. And the guy had to take over and start doing the talking, but then he couldn't talk because they were both laughing so hard. And then they keep playing that seal going, get out of here, get out of here. Oh, it's weird. But that's what vocal fry sounds like. And that's what that sounds like. So I always compare it to that little seal at the aquarium in Boston. Hi, Scott. How can you tell if someone is fake crying or playing up their emotions, especially when trying to manipulate someone. Think about emotions as this. You'll see that the emotion on their face, the emotion in question. But the thing is, fake won't stick. You can't sit there and pretend to be sad for a long time because after a while, no matter how hard you try to keep doing this, it's going to change in a weird way. When you have a true emotion, let's say sadness, it goes and it locks because it's your brain that's creating that emotion on your face. From a neurological perspective, it's just locking it on there because you feel that way. It's doing these specific things to your face, right? So if the person is trying to fool you and they want you to keep thinking they're sad and all that, watch how long that emotion stays. They may change, it may relax a little bit as they think and talk and then get worse again as you talk to them. So it almost breathes as you're looking at an emotion like that. But watch for how long it stays. If it just stays a few seconds and goes away and they go to another one, they don't, in other words, morph from one expression to the other, then there's something's up there. There's a situation there because expressions don't just click from one to the other. They don't go click, click, click. They morph from one to the other. Really important. That's a good question. So if you think somebody's trying to manipulate you by pretending they're sad, keep talking to them. See how long they remain sad about that. Then say something funny if you can get them to laugh, and then see how quickly they go back to that expression. Because it should, if they go from laughing real hard to back to like that real fast, I would surmise that person is not being honest with you. But if it goes back, if it sort of morphs back into that sad face, that sad expression, then you got a sad person on your hands. So watch how long the expressions that they're showing you stay or stick, because fake emotions won't stick on the face. It's really important. It's a good question. What are the 3 best books you can recommend to someone wanting to better their ability to read body language, and why? Okay, let's say you just gotten into body language, right? And for some reason you've happened upon this channel and you go, I think I want to get into that. I want to start from the beginning. Or if you're already into it and you want to say, I know a whole lot, but I've never really read anything or gotten a book or anything like that, I got 3 good ones for you, right? First one you want to get is by Joe Navarro. It's called What Everybody is Saying. Go throw Joe Navarro in the Goog and you'll know all about him. Awesome guy, excellent writer, and his books are fantastic. He's written a bunch of them, right? Get that book. Start there. That's what I tell everybody. I have my book, Understanding Body Language, but I have people go do his first before anything else when that question comes up, because maybe because I see how powerful that thing is. It's been around for a while, but my goodness, great book to get. You should get that if you don't have it. Just get it. Then just go. You don't have to start at the beginning. You can just open it up and read anywhere in it. I don't think I have mine in here. I'd show it to you. Well, there it is. Hang on. Okay. That was quick. So see, there's mine. And so you can see where I have stuff like that. And you can go anywhere in that book. Doesn't matter where you start, and you read a page or two, and you'll learn something in that. I always have this by one of my copies that I haven't worn completely out. And you're saying, well, why would you read that all the time? Because there's stuff you'll miss in some of these books, right? So I go through that thing. There's 4 or 5 books I read all the time. That's one of them. It's that way I don't forget. Not that I have a memory problem. I don't, but I want it so solid in there when it comes up. Like we were talking earlier, how things you just recognize them and it happens. So if there's something in there that I haven't seen or I haven't experienced, when I see it, I go, oh, I know what that is. Right? That's what you want to do. So 3 books. Unmasking the Face. That's another great one by Paul Ekman. And Emotion in the Face. I'd say those 3. Emotion in the Face. That's a good one too. And like I said at the very beginning of this, the face is so important, especially when you're dealing with one-on-one situations like this or on Zoom. You're talking to someone on Zoom and just in person. The facial expressions are so important because that's where most of the action is. That's where the important stuff is. That's where emotion is displayed, right there. So you need to learn as much as you can about that. If you want to learn as much as you can about body language, none of those books are hard to read. They're easy reads, but they're fantastic. And Paul Ekman is a wonderful writer as well. These things aren't too technical. They're not like studies you're reading. You can go in the back of each one of these books, you can find out where all that information came from. See, it's so great because if you get one of these books, all you got to do is look in the back and go, oh, where do you hear this? The bibliography. And you go, oh, and then don't go buy them. Go down the dang library. As corny as that sounds, as cornball as that sounds, I've got a library card. Hand to God. You got to go do that. Oh, I'm nerding out. I'm going to quit it. Anyway, that's what I would suggest. Sorry about that. Is it normal to have a work personality and a regular personality? We've covered this a little bit before, 2 episodes ago, and it's totally normal. You know, all the world's a stage. I'm not gonna go into an interview or an interrogation with somebody and talk to them like I'm talking to you. I will at first a little bit, so they feel like they can relax, like they know me, like nothing's wrong, everything's good, right? But I'm not going to stay that way very long because then my work personality comes out, and sometimes that personality can be rude or mean. But yeah, everybody's got a different one when you go. When you go outside your house, you have a different one. We're all a bunch of different people when we go running around. You're a different person at church than you are at the bar, right? You're a different person at the grocery store than you are out in the driveway, talking to your neighbor. It's totally different. Everybody's different. So at work, you're completely different because you got to be professional. You got to, you're there for a reason. You're good at what you do or you wouldn't be there. So you got to act like that person, So you have your work personality and you have your home personality or your regular personality. It's totally normal. Everybody does that. What causes someone to habitually display deceptive body language, behavior when that person is in fact telling the truth? Quite often people take a quick shoulder shrug. That means you're lying. It just means you're unsure about the answer or unsure about what you're talking about. Or it suggests that. It doesn't mean that because there are no absolutes. Remember, we talked about that. Just because you see somebody scratch their nose doesn't mean they're lying. Just because they seem quick shoulder shrug doesn't mean they're lying or telling the truth. So they may just be, you're seeing normal body language. That's the thing about body. People go, body language is a pseudoscience because they don't read. They don't understand there's actually science behind it. There are all kinds of people that study that. Universities, scientists, all kinds of people study it, and they do books and papers on it. And that's where people like me get that information. Just from that, because there's no college you can go to for that. So I'm going to take body language. They may have some kind of simple human, I don't know, body language class. I don't know. Or have something like, well, on the other hand, I do teach at universities, or, I go give talks at universities all the time. So you have somebody like me come in and do that. Yeah, that's one thing. To keep from going down a rabbit hole and get into a whole bunch of stuff, you can display what some people think are deceptive cues, but it's because they don't know enough to know they're not being deceptive. Those are just normal. Because deceptive, there isn't like one deceptive cue or a cue that says, oh, that person's lying or that person's telling the truth. You're just seeing them run around and do stuff, right? And just because they do this with their shoulder during a question or an answer doesn't mean they're being dishonest. It just means in that particular situation, specifically at that time, they may not be sure about what they're saying. They may have just heard it and they're repeating it. It doesn't mean they're lying. Doesn't mean they're telling you the truth. Doesn't mean anything. You have to that's why we always say you have to have a cluster of cues you look for, Now, if you saw, if somebody's telling you something, you saw this and their head go back a little bit, their nostrils flare, and they scooch back a little bit, and as they talk, their voice got a little bit quieter. That's a cluster of cues right there that say that person may not be telling the truth about this. Maybe this didn't happen to them. Maybe they didn't just see this. Maybe whatever it is not true. You got to think about it like that because you're looking for clusters of cues. That's why questioning is so important. Being able to talk to the person, so you'll know when you see these things, you'll go, is that true or not? I'm sure are a bunch of deceptive cues, deception cues. let me ask something about this. And you ask them to go further with their explanation, or you say, or whatever the question would be, you have to know what questions to ask next. That's the only difference between me and you. If somebody came out and said, okay, let's look at this video and you tell me if this person is lying or not. You know what my chances of knowing that are? And your chances of knowing that are? Yours are 50-50. You flip a coin and say, lying or telling the truth, right? Mine, 60-40, just a little better than yours. Not much. That's why it's so important to know what questions to answer next. That's why you just can't, when people say, play three truths and a lie. There's not there. That's so goofy, because there's no, number two, there's no stress behind that person lying. You know, if they get caught lying, are they going to lose $10,000 or $1 million? Are they going to go to prison? Are they going to be in trouble for murdering somebody or for stealing a car? There's no heat back behind that. There's no stress behind that. Nothing to cause stress. So they can just say whatever they want and have the same same look on their face the whole time. You know? So anyway, if you saw the series Dexter, which I was fascinated by, do you think the main character Dexter did a good job rather than a bad job playing a psychopath? You know what, I thought about that. And I thought about this when I saw that show, because the very first episode, I was like, oh man, somebody's done a show about a real psychopath. Here we go. Because if you'll watch the first episode in the first 2 minutes, he's on this boat going out in the ocean, and he's talking, he's saying everything you should say. He's thinking everything you should think if he was a psychopath. Everything you go, and you accept is that, wow, if you were a person who understood psychopathy, which you do now, and you'd say, yeah, the guy's a psychopath. Here we go. This is going to be good. And he seemed to do all these crazy things, right? That are horrible that he does. But when you think about what's happening and you really pay attention, you know he's not. Here's how you know. So we talk about this all the time on here, as you know. Psychopaths can't have feelings for other people. A true clinical psychopath. A person can have a psychopathic episode, I guess. But he cared about his sister. He got mad when people would be mean to children and make children disappear, that kind of thing. And that's the people he would attack. Or if they were mean to a woman, he would attack them, because he felt for that woman, or he felt for that child, right? Think about it. Or his sister. So, and think about it as well. What they show you is why he's like he is, why he's a quote unquote psychopath, because I'm not going to say it on here because it's too graphic, but it was a situation where he and his sister were in this, I think it was the back of a truck or something like that. It was enclosed, and there were a lot of people in there that weren't alive anymore. That's out. And it was pretty gory too. So, and they were in there for a few days, and supposedly that turned him into a psychopath. Doesn't work that way. We know that, because we know psychopathy is caused, or the clinical narcissist or the clinical psychopath is born, not raised, not nurtured. It's nature, not nurture, right? So you could say the guy's a quote unquote sociopath. I always say there are no sociopaths. They're just hardcore criminals. The highest form of malignant narcissist you can get, that's what a quote unquote sociopath is. They're just usually hardcore criminals. They go to prison early, they get killed early, most of the time, that kind of thing. So, no, I don't think he was a psychopath. That first episode, I was like, yeah, this looks good. And then about a third of the way through, I was like, wait a minute, man, this isn't right. Something's not right here. Why do you say that? And then as I watched a few more, I was kind of let down, because it looked like it was going to be a fantastic show, series. But it was a bummer, because they're presenting him as one and he wasn't. Do you think, as our social behavior is evolving and changing, attitudes are prevalent, do you think the body language is or will evolve with our social changes? I see what you're saying. In other words, as time goes on, will our body language change? The human body language socially change? Yeah, it will. Of course it will. You can't, you can look at body language, I'm sure, from the 50s even, and we see it in videos and films, quite different than it is now. People would act differently, the way they are publicly and the way they are on talk shows, the way they talk when they're being interviewed, or even the presidents, their body language is all different. It's the controlled body language. Now, the neurological body language, nothing has changed. Nothing, I don't know if it'll change or not. I wouldn't think so. But as we go through, as things progress in a linear fashion, yeah, the body language will change. It has changed in the last, 100 years that we've been able to watch it and see video and film of it. It's changed. So, yeah, it's going to change. It'll keep changing. I don't know what's going to change into. Who knows? But it's a fairly slow process, I would think. But I guess 100 years really isn't that much on the timeline in the scheme of things. Yeah, it's going to change. My question is, can pain be mistaken for stress or deception, and how do you rule it out? All right, what you're looking for in body language, one of the first things right out of the gate, you're trying to decide whether that person is comfortable or uncomfortable. And you're looking for those differences. If they're comfortable and all of a sudden you notice they're uncomfortable, what happened between here and there? Right? Did you say something? Something happened? And when someone is in pain, you'll see pain. You'll see the body language or at least the facial cues is showing they're in pain. As their brow will come together like that quite often, or they'll maybe wince, or they may see one eye do that. And as they're doing that, they may squeeze their hand. A lot of things will tell you. You'll be able to spot it. So, but if it's you with the pain, don't worry about that. They'll understand, or just tell them. Shouldn't be a problem for you. People can spot that. Usually, just anybody can go, "Ooh, looks like something's hurting. You get a headache, or what's going on?" They may not say that, but you could say, if you're worried about it, just so you know, I might get a headache. I don't think they think you're just whining to be whiny or anything. Tell them what's up, so you don't have to worry about it. All right. If you have any questions about body language, just email me, bodylanguagequestions@gmail.com, and I'll get right on it.